require attendance, but
No, no.
I saw Dr. Foster, right? So then everybody else is accounted for, yeah. Mr. Klein?
Yes.
We're good.
Okay. Good evening, everybody.
Deliver information.
This evening, we are here to talk about the 2014-15 Council Rock fiscal year budget. We have a proposed budget that was passed last Thursday. Our intent tonight is to give you a brief overview of the many different nuances of the budget, functions by the responsible administrator who will present, and then to provide the opportunity for members of our community to ask questions about the budget. We have 3x5 cards in the back, pencils. Script out any questions that you have. Even if you can't script it out at that point in time, we can certainly take questions as we move forward. And then the final part of this evening will be a public comment. So the agenda will look something like this. Our presentation hopefully will be between 30 and 40 minutes. And then we'll spend, Bob and I and our team, time answering questions that you script for us. And then we'll end with public comment. All right? Tonight's program is televised on Council Rock TV Live, and it will be rebroadcast over the course of the next couple weeks. So members of our community who were unable to make it tonight, because I know we have some concerts, some other activities, will be able to look at this budget forum as it plays out this season. Okay. Everybody ready? Here we go. First thing I want, welcome, John, thanks for coming. The first thing I want to make sure that everybody knows, and we'll repeat this a couple different times, is that tonight doesn't end the inquiry, it really begins it. And so if you have any questions as you look at the various details that we have posted on our web and in other places for the school district budget, you can send any question you have to this email, budget@crsd.org. That question will go on to the laptop of Mr. Reinhardt and I. Mr. Reinhardt's the Director of Business Administration. I'm the Superintendent, and we can answer that question. In most cases, we'll be back to you within 24 or 48 hours, unless there is something significant that we need to turn around and build for you. So that email is active now. It's been active for a while, and it will stay active until we complete the budget process in June. I'll repeat this email again, but again, it's budget@crsd.org.
Good evening, everyone. And as I start every presentation, I talk about where we've been. And you'll see we started this whole process back December 18th. And that was at a finance meeting where we decided, or we recommended to the board, and the board accepted that we would set a limit on the tax increase that we would go for in this current fiscal year. We all believe we could do it for under the Act 1 index, and we'll get into that a little bit later, of 2.1%. Instead of, some districts may go for exceptions and things like that, which would allow the district to increase taxes beyond the 2.1%. That was really the starting point. We agreed back December 18th that we would not seek a tax increase of over 2.1%. The board acted on that in January 16th. And February 27th, during our finance meeting, it was the first time we really reviewed a budget document. It was a very generalized document, and we didn't get into a lot of detail. March 27th was really the first budget document that came out with significant detail. So the first draft of the budget was handed out to the board and reviewed. That same day, we did review the governor's budget proposal, which is still ongoing. And we do not expect a budget in the near future with the state. They just got some more bad news in the budget. I just got it over the internet this afternoon that with 2 months left in the state budget, they're now, I think, $425 million behind their projected revenues. And now some of the credit agencies are talking about reducing their credit rating at this point. So we're not sure how difficult that's going to make the state budget and any additional funding that would be in our budget or would be promised to the district. April 23rd was the finance meeting that we reviewed a preliminary document, and we pared down the increase in our budget, and that was really due to retirements. We then did some evaluations of staffing, and we also reduced the staff by 4 personnel also. So those reductions were considered in the preliminary budget, and that's where we are today with the preliminary budget. May 1st at the board meeting, the board did go for a preliminary budget. And you will see that if you look at the preliminary budget, without a tax increase, there's $209 million of revenues, $214 million of expenditures. So without a tax increase, we would be looking at using $5 million of fund balance. The administrative recommendation was to use $3.7 million of fund balance. About $1.2 million of that is the use of the PSERS reserve that people have heard about quite a bit. It's $7.4 million there. This is in a deliberate use where we're going to use a portion this year, a greater portion next year, and then we're going to start weaning ourselves off of it again and try to level out the tax increases that would be due to PSERS alone. So this is the first step in that, and that's why we're using that type of fund balance. So really all you looked at is the difference between the $5 million and the 3.7. So to make this work, we would need a tax increase of $1.3 million. Each time we raise a mill, the district receives an additional $1.2 million of revenue. So therefore, we would need 1.07 mills to cover the revenue that we would need. Right now, our millage rate is 114.2 mills. The new millage rate would be 115.09 mills. It's a 0.94% tax increase compared to last year's increase. Just want to point out that based on the median homestead property, the tax increase would be about $41 based on if you live in an average home within the community as determined by the median homestead, which is calculated off the county rolls. Does everyone get that? Does everyone understand that? Okay. We just learned yesterday of the state gaming revenue that is used to directly reduce the real estate taxes, the property owners' real estate taxes from our budget. The total allocation is almost $3 million. It's a little more than past years. The amount of homesteads and farmsteads, we have 20,406. So all we're doing is taking that number and dividing it, and $259.60 will be reduced off your real estate tax as it has in past years. Below, I am showing you from the order when it originated, the reduction used to be $274.71. It has gone up and down through the years. Last year it was $249.36. So if you look at that, and taxes would stay exactly the same, you would actually pay $10.24 less this year than last year. So if you want to combine the two and you live in a average home, if you will, and I don't want to call it average because nothing's average unless you live in it, and I understand that, but you would take the $40.66 and take the $10.24 and subtract that off, and that would be the net cost of the tax increase this year. That is not something I would ever tell you to rely on, because you can see that sometimes the rebate goes up, sometimes it goes down. So that's just this year what has occurred this year. Other thing is that this tax reduction is equal on everybody's home. So if you live in a home that's assessed at $5,000, or if you live in a home that is assessed at $1 million, that is the amount. So in a $5,000 home, it's a huge percentage of the tax you pay. If it's in $1 million home, it's a small percentage of the tax you pay. Does everyone understand that point in Main Street?
Okay.
That's all I have for tonight. At least so far.
He has so much more to offer. But this evening, we're going to break into our administrative functions. Our Director of Human Resources, Director of Instructional Technology, Supervisor of Facilities, Director of Curriculum Service, Director of Special Services. Each of them are going to spend just a couple minutes with you on their specific area, how it's affected, and what the budget looks like with respect to special services or curriculum or other places. So we're going to start with our Director of Human Resources, Ms. Christine Trill.
For those of you that human resources has become a very accessible term for most people, but very briefly, what each, okay, well, I'm sorry, a little bit sick tonight. HR covers all aspects of recruiting, staffing, benefits administration, substitute services, credentialing, leave management, and evaluation and other types of services for the district. We play a big part in collective bargaining. We often facilitate some parts of staff development. We do conflict resolution. We serve a great number of purposes and a great number of people in the district. Very briefly, I put some numbers together for you to see who HR serves and who we're able to support here in Council Rock. So we support 1,364 total active employees. Additionally, we have 486 active daily substitutes. And that includes substitutes who are professional substitutes and support substitutes. We provide coverage for any absence that is instructional or security guards as well. We have over 800 extra duty responsibility positions, and what that means, it's school district language for coaching positions, club monitors, advisors. So your football coach, for example, falls under that category. We're also responsible for the benefits management and the administration of benefits for over 1,369 lives. And we say lives, that means the dependents of our employees, their husbands, their wives, their children. These are some quick numbers on what we facilitated this year in the areas of our responsibility. So on top of our 1,364 active employees, we placed 120 full-time substitutes. Full-time substitutes come in and provide service where we have teachers who have a maternity leave or an illness, or perhaps a teacher has taken a sabbatical leave. A substitute comes in and serves in their place. We have facilitated about 60 long-term substitute placements. A long-term placement is any assignment that's under 60 days. So that could be a shorter surgery, a shorter illness, or perhaps a maternity leave that is where the person returns very quickly. We have made 145 professional assignment changes. So each year there's a reshuffling of staff. Teachers may move from one building to another, one grade level to another, or they may change positions, our support staff as well. You'll see changes like a recess assistant becoming a teacher assistant, or a cafeteria monitor becoming an office support person. So there are a great many changes that take place during the school year. We hired 53 support staff placements were made this year as well. That can be for retirements, resignations, maternity leaves, all of the things that I've mentioned already. We have 130 leaves of absences were facilitated through the Human Resources Office. When someone takes a leave, a department member in HR meets with that person and walks them through every step of the process, what their options are, what's available to them, how their benefits will continue. Often we meet with husbands and wives together, even if the partner's not a member of the district. And we also facilitate retirements. I don't have a number here, but that's a personal interaction as well. We coordinated the placement of 900 daily substitutes approximately each month, and we screened over 1,200 applications to date. So that just gives you a quick overview of the work that we typically do in a year. This is a little bit difficult to see, but hopefully you can look at the bolded bottom numbers. This gives you a very nice overview of our 5-year staffing snapshot. So while it may look like from year to year staff is going up, you can see over time that our staff is diminishing in numbers. If you look from 2010 to 2014-15, we're down by 44 staff member total across the board. This slide will show you a snapshot of our professional staff and reiterates the point that we made on the previous slide, that while it may look like staff's increasing from last year to this upcoming year, or from 2012-13 to 13-14, over time we've actually had a reduction in our staff. You'll see that there are some new additions that are coming for the upcoming school year, but the cost of that is abated by some things that we've brought in-house. We brought in the speech and language pathology program from the Bucks County Intermediate Unit, and that's facilitated a lot of savings for the district, a great savings. Additionally, back in 07, 08, we also brought into the district our autistic support program. So at one time, those services were offered by the Bucks County Intermediate Unit. It's now done in-house, and that's given us an offset savings of around $4 million. So when you see new staff or what appears to be an increase, that has been offset by some of the actions that we've taken to bring things back into the district. We're really proud that we serve a great number of people and serve a great number of purposes, but we do it very economically. I have only 4 staff members, and our total budget for next year is, as you can see on the screen. So just 3 quick highlights of the things that we're working on in HR. We're refining our screening process and our tools. We have such a great system that we use to screen applicants. From the minute that you apply to Council Rock, we have very high standards in terms of who is successful through our screening process. We have a paper screening, a centralized screening, a building-based screening, a cabinet-level interview, and then finally you're able to become an employee of the district. Some of our screening tools, our interview questions, have not been looked at in a few years, so we have a committee that's come together to look at those tools and make sure that we're asking the right questions for today in education. Myself and Mrs. McClendon will kick off a leadership academy at the start of next school year. The academy's purpose will be to help develop leaders within the district. So professional staff members who hold administrative certification have put in applications to Mrs. McClendon and myself, and will be joining us for a year-long learning to become educational leaders. Within the HR department, our focus is on integrating and using technology to facilitate our work in a more efficient and more effective manner. So we're looking at things like position control, integration of systems that we have that will allow us to get rid of paper and use technology to process payroll for substitutes, time off requests, a greater technological expansion of our applicant processing as well.
Thank you. I want to just augment Ms. Trioli's idea. The Leadership Academy isn't new. We've had the Leadership Academy ongoing for a little while. I don't want you to think we just decided it's a good idea to start to cultivate leaders, but some of our best people have just been hired now, elementary and secondary positions. Some other very few people were hired in other districts. So we're now looking for new primary leaders who will help replace the ones that are in Council Rock. Our next department is Information Technology. It's led by Director of Technology, Mr. Matt Frederickson.
He told me I couldn't talk for 6 hours on technology, so I won't. This is just an overview of what we do on a daily basis in terms of what we support. There are 10 people in the department. We have 6 technicians out in the buildings that support the needs of the district in terms of the students and the teachers every day. The budget is really centered around the cost involved in supporting the software applications that are used in the district, and the technology, the desktops, the laptops, the switches, the routers, the access points. And as most of you know, technology has evolved over the last several years, and it's becoming more and more, and that line is being blurred between what's technology and what's just expected. We believe in the department that technology is just part of a teacher's toolbox. It should be there when they need it to allow them to accomplish what they need, which is educating the students. Our goals for this summer, we're going to continue to refresh. Every year we refresh so many machines. We have a percentage of our budget which is allocated to that. We're going to replace roughly 1,000 desktops and laptop computers. We're going to replace the switches at the high schools. And the reason that we're replacing the switches at the high schools is because on the horizon, we believe that there will be a time when students are bringing in technology and teachers will want them to use them in the classroom. It's called a Bring Your Own Device program. And these switches will give us the tools we need to accommodate that and still maintain the security and safety of the network. We intend to continue refreshing our storage, the space that we're used. Some of the equipment we have is approaching 10 years old and needs to be replaced. And our goal is always to maintain the existing equipment and software licenses.
Thank you. As we go through this, and I realize we're moving through a lot of information quickly, understand that this PowerPoint will be posted to the web tomorrow. So anybody that wants to go back through it and again shoot questions to us at that budget and CRSD email, can certainly do that. We'll make sure that this gets posted in its entirety tomorrow morning. Dr. Lambert, Special Services.
Good evening, everyone. Just to give you an idea of the numbers in the Special Services Department, where we handle special education, gifted education, students who receive services, we call them Section 504 service agreements through the Americans with Disabilities Act, instructional support programs, social works, guidance counselors, all the other non-business, non-human resources, and non-regular education stuff falls within our department. To give you an idea of numbers, special ed students, we currently have about 1,900 students with IEPs in the district. That number goes up and down a little bit every year, but we pretty much hug right around 15% of our total, of our district population, which is around the state average for that. Gifted students, we serve about 900 students, K to 12. I didn't include in here the kids, the youngsters with Section 504 service agreements under the ADA and students with English language learner needs. But if you were to combine all of those together, it's between 25 and 30% of our kids receiving some type of specialized services under one of those programs. We currently have about 175 special ed teachers. We have 200 special ed assistants, which includes classroom assistants and one-to-one assistants working with students with significant needs. We have actually 9.9 FTEs, but 10 psychologists. We have 25 nurses within the district. They also provide services to the non-public schools within the district. 33 counselors, and we have 5 social workers and CARES staff members. In special education, we have a couple different sources of revenue in addition to the local tax dollars. We receive access funds. You've heard a lot about that the past couple board meetings. Access funds are federal dollars that we may seek reimbursement for certain services that are medically necessary that we provide to children. Speech therapy, occupational therapy, vision therapy, nursing services, one-to-one assistance, and those kind of things. I would say that this is a very difficult place for us to be right now because we really don't know what we're dealing with money-wise. About 3 years ago, if you had asked me, I would say we anticipate about $1 million per year in revenue based on the Access program. 2 years ago, there was an audit of Pennsylvania's Access program by the federal government. Based on that, which we have not seen the audit, so we're not really sure, but we are advised that that will probably result in a general 25% reduction in the money that we would receive. If you see for what we received in 12-13 and what we've received so far this year, it's less than half of what we expected we should have received. There's just some issues with the vendor and the process that there's money that we know we're going to get, we just don't yet know how much it's going to be. I'm hoping it's going to be around $750,000, but I'm just not sure. I haven't put up 14-15 numbers because, again, that's kind of, we're not sure what it's going to be. The IDEA funds is based purely on the number of students we have receiving services. You can see that that number has gone down a little bit. That is based on partly because we've had a reduction in numbers from 12-13 to 13-14, and also because there's a formula at the federal government level and then where the money is generated, then at the state level before it comes to the IU and then to us. There's a formula that's calculated how much we get, which I certainly don't have that knowledge, but I'm assuming that formula has changed a little bit each year as well. And then the subsidy dollars we get through the Department of Education. So, oops. In terms of expenditures, I put up these two because these are our major sources of where we're spending money is IU services. You can see that is for vision therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, tuitions for certain kids who have specialized needs that need a certain program. You can see that that has dropped down significantly over what we're projecting for next year over the current year. I'll tell you why that is in a moment. And that has greatly reduced over the past several years because of the taking over of the speech services and us providing some of the services on our own. I also included in that the Sloan Twilight School budget. That includes salaries, benefits, all parts of that programming. The Sloan School is our alternative school, and the Twilight School is for students who are excluded from school for a first-time drug weapons offense. We also use it for kids who have specialized mental health needs that need a specialized program for a brief period of time. Of that figure there, probably 75% is Sloan, and probably more than 75 to 80% is Sloan, and about 20% is Twilight. What we are looking at new for next year, I think we've had some presentations before the board about our Achieve program, which is our program for 18 to 21-year-old students, trying to transition them into adult life. We are next year, you'll be getting in your memo this Friday a little bit more information about this, but we are looking to increase to Achieve 2. We have a lot of parents whose kids are leaving our school-age program, moving into the 18 to 21-year-old program. They've been very impressed with what we're doing and what we're now calling Achieve 1, and would like to have the same opportunity. So we're looking to do that. I'm guesstimating it'll be, well, it's more than a guesstimate. It's a good estimate that it's going to be about a $50,000 savings based on not having to pay tuition for those students elsewhere. So we're pretty excited about that. We are also, as you're aware, through the gifted program review that we did last year, we are looking at program changes for next year. We have a forum coming up that we've invited parents who have been involved in the process all along to go over some of the changes that we're looking at. That is posted on the website. You can see that information. We are not right now looking at anything that is going to cause an increase to the budget. We have certainly many things that were recommended that we do that would have some implications for staffing in our efforts to try to incorporate STEM into the gifted program. And some other things in terms of staff development, what have you. We decided in this first bite that we were not going to be looking at things that would be an increase to the budget. So we'll be making some changes next year that we're excited about, and once we get through this phase, we'll move into a next phase and be back to you with what those things will look like. Any questions?
Yes, moving along.
Moving along.
Enjoy curriculum services.
Good evening. I share curriculum services with Mr. Barry Desko, the Director of Secondary Education. And I like to say curriculum services are the heart of the budget because it deals directly with the instruction and being a teacher. Once you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. So you know you just enjoy those opportunities when you can work with what happens in the classroom, which is the instruction. And that's what happens with the curriculum budget. Down button? Or over?
Space bar.
All right, so under the curriculum budget, we handle 3 general areas. The first area is the curriculum services, which involves the books, the equipment, the resources, and all of our K-12 programs. And when I speak about equipment, I'm talking about instruments in the music budget, kilns in the art budget, iPads sometimes for specific classrooms. So the curriculum services budget covers not just the textbooks that students read and the novels that students read, but also some equipment and other resources in our K-12 programs. Our library services, for the most part, when you see the amount, you will see that it covers the district-funded databases. And the district-funded databases are the resources that students use to access and to do research, and also covers the entire library management program. So that's also included in the library services budget. And finally, the professional development budget has to do with all the professional development that we provide for over 1,300 professional and support staff members. Now, the professional development budget department came to the curriculum services budget about 2 years ago when it used to be housed in the HR department. We recognize that it really fits better in the curriculum budget because when we're having different instructional initiatives, it has to do with the curriculum. So that's why when you see the next slide, you will note under staff development that we could not show we didn't show the 2012-13 staff development budget because it wasn't a part of curriculum services. So if you look at the budget, you'll see the 3 general areas. The curriculum services area, which is the 1100 program, and we show you a 3-year view. of our budget from 2012-13, 13-14, and then our projected budget for next year. When you look at the 1100 program, you'll notice a significant difference between the amount we requested for this current year and the amount we're requesting for next year. And that is primarily due to an elementary reading program which we purchased 2 years ago and paid for over 3-year installments. So we completed that payment this current budget year. So you can see the difference of a significant difference between what we requested last year or for this current year and next year. Our library services remained pretty constant, and our staff development budget is around $271,000 for next year. Now, I should point out that much of that budget for staff development has to do with what we pay substitutes so teachers can and support staff can participate in professional development. And it averages out to be about $200 per employee for professional development. Where are we going? Well, in our 1100 budget, we continue to update our textbooks, purchase needed equipment, and review our course offerings. We will continue to maintain our library database next year. And of course, in professional development, we will continue to be responsive in terms of what we provide our teachers to the district initiatives and the requirements of the state. Sometimes in professional development, we offer is in direct response to initiatives of the state. So for example, the state is implementing a new teacher effectiveness model, and as a result, teachers have to write individualized plans for their classroom, and we intend to provide professional development to help them do that next year. That's the curriculum budget.
Mr. Taylor, you want to participate? Mr. Doug Taylor is Supervisor of Operations at National Rock.
Good evening. So a couple quick, fast facts about facilities. We have 15 schools, 16 ancillary buildings which we maintain. We have approximately 1,750,000 square foot of schools that we're looking after on a regular basis. About 670 acres, of which 450 acres are maintained by a crew of 6 men. So pretty big task. 42 staff members plus our Aramark custodial staff, which equates to about 100 FTEs of staff, and manage about 30 service contracts each year. The budget, what came before, what I've done, I'm not going to go through all the line items, but I've highlighted those line items that have the most significant increases from this year to next. So for example, on the first page, repairs and maintenance. The other thing I'll mention about this budget briefly is that it does not include salaries and benefits, but the grand total on the next page does, just so you understand what the total budget is. On the final page, general supplies is another that has increased, equipment and other costs. So those are the 4 line items with the largest impact to next year's budget. To touch on those numbers, repairs and maintenance is up about $78,000. General supplies, almost $70,000. Equipment, $74,500. And other costs, $50,000. So why are those the costs that are increased from this year to next? A brief overview of those. Repairs and maintenance or service contracts, we've added a chiller at Holland Elementary School, which contributes to the cost. I want to add another service contract to those that we already manage, and that would be high bay cleaning services. For example, libraries, gymnasiums, those spaces that have exposed ductwork and things like that that are very dusty and dirty. We don't get up to clean those often. That would provide us with an opportunity to do so and start maintaining those spaces. And tree clearing, which we learned was problematic after the storms we've had this year. General supplies, really just as it says, ground infield mix, fertilizers, mechanical, electrical, plumbing supplies, carpentry supplies, things that we need to maintain our facilities. Equipment, we'd like to start cycling in lawn tractors with snow throwers for each of the elementary schools moving forward. So this would be the first year of a series of years we would start to introduce those pieces of equipment, which would facilitate our guys not only in the summer but also in the winters when we have these large snowfalls instead of pushing around snow blowers. It would provide dual use. Backhoe attachments, if you recall, we removed our backhoe from the district because it was in disrepair. We did have a couple tractors repaired, so we would like to get some attachments and make full use out of those pieces of equipment. And we have ongoing vehicular replacement program. We need another pickup truck for the department. The other cost was unplanned expenditures, and another area that we learned things this past year, weather-related cleanup or repairs, small capital projects that we didn't necessarily either list in our budget or plan for through summer projects, and those could include the need to add a computer lab to a school based on programmatic needs, etc. That concludes my portion.
First of all, if you have questions, we'll break for a minute, and you can just put them up here, and Bob and I will start to organize them. So then we're going to let you have to keep scanning with the email, if you have to do that, start copying. I want to just add a couple slides to this. At the last board meeting, I mentioned this, and I feel strongly about just continuing to talk about the historic community. We, as well as other township officials, we're the first line of taxation for a lot of people. And so when you see a tax increase, even a 0.94% tax increase, some of the burden comes on us to explain that, and we're happy to do that. But we can't do that without at least putting it in the context of the other funding that should be coming to Council Rock and other school districts. It certainly is more acute and far more difficult when you read the paper and read about the Philadelphia School District and the terrible things they're having to deal with in terms of making their budgets work. But I just want people to understand that as we're looking for this tax increase, what we see from the state is an absolute reduction in the amount of money that is coming. Carrie, I'll send this to you, I promise. From the state to the school district. We've seen static or shrinking state subsidy. Dr. Lambert showed you our special subsidy is going down, and we have every year for the past 4 years seen a decline in our transportation subsidy. In addition, we have a lot of different things that that are supposed to be funded by the state that have either stopped or been significantly declined. PlanCon is a great example. 2 years ago in the omnibus budget in 2011, the state just stopped funding PlanCon. It's a statutory requirement. What PlanCon is the reimbursement that comes back to a school district for planned and approved reimbursements from the state for our renovations. So when we renovated Churchville, Holland, and Goodnoe, we went through a very difficult, very long process with Mr. Taylor, the architect, and many people in our community to go and fulfill the PlanCon requirements. That should have meant that we, in addition to being approved for these construction projects, would receive state subsidy back to us on the debt service that we incurred for all of those projects. We've not seen a single dollar from the state on those PlanCon projects over the past 3 years. And that effectively means somewhere in the neighborhood of a $3 million deficit over that period, over the debt service for those different projects. So this is just an example of what's happening to us as we're managing this budget. What we are relying on more and more is local revenues. Not that that's what we should be doing, and that's not the way the statutory scheme is built, but more and more the reality is we're working with the local revenue that is passed, that is given to us through real estate tax and income tax. The other thing I just want to mention is we have consistently unfunded. You not hear me in the back? Because I usually have a pretty loud voice. You have a consistently large set of what we would call unfunded mandates. Things that the state requires us to do to take a considerable amount of time, but there's no backfill funding for that. So every time a new initiative comes down, like Keystone Testing, like a brand new set of teacher evaluations, we have a commensurate amount of work to do, training to do, in-service to do, and there is no basic subsidy increase for those kinds of mandates. And those are just a few of the unfunded mandates. Every time public education turns around, there's something new that should be, that is a statutory increase or statutory requirement. So those are just a point I want to continue to make on this budget, that we rely on the local taxpayers more and more, not just because we have increasing expenditures, but because we have revenues that are declining significantly, particularly from the state burden. The board has asked me to present what it would look like to move to a 0% tax increase. And none of these are recommendations. They are just simply meeting the question that was asked to me, what would happen if we reduced 1.3 million? And I didn't give you a single recommendation. I simply looked at the budget and said, if you were to take 1.3 million out of that budget to make a 0% increase, here's what it would look like. You could reduce by 12 professional staff or some kind of mix therein of professional support and administrators. 1.3 million in this budget is each of those bullets. So if we took out all of the new technology we're buying from Mr. Frederickson's budget, it would be about 1.3 million. If we eliminated an instrumental music program, and fill in the blank there, it would be at roughly $1.3 million. It's roughly equates to 17 bus routes out of 156 total. And you can see the rest of it. 1.3 million, interestingly, is 1/2 of the money that we give discretionary to our buildings to buy books, supplies, textbooks, resources, pencils, pens, etc. So it's a total of about $2.6 million that is discretionary funds given to the buildings to fill in all of those things that happen in the classroom.
There's been a question in regard to our debt service over the years and capital projects and how we finance the capital projects. If you would look, these are the current bond issues that we have outstanding right now. And this is the principal and interest that is scheduled to be paid next year. Any capital projects that we fund is either funded through a capital reserve fund, which is usually the summer projects, which is not part of the general fund, or if they're larger capital projects where we have to borrow money, we pay the debt service out of the general fund. The proceeds of the bonds actually pay for the debt service. So should we do a large capital project, that is not going to increase the general fund's budget very quickly. It would be a planned increase in our debt service. So we've been funding the debt service, interestingly, using refinancings to keep our debt service under the $17 million. And that is the key point that you should have in here. This is a very moving target, I would say. This year we had 3 different transactions to refund debt so that we would be able to pay less debt service in the future, just like going out and refinancing your mortgage, you get a lower interest rate, so then you pay less in the long term of the bonds. And this is just the most recent up-to-date one. You will see that the last A, B, C are all bond issues that we did this year to reduce our debt. And we've been working on that and spreading those savings over a long period of time to keep our debt underneath the $17 million. And that's just something I want to understand, and also understand that our capital is not funded through the general fund directly.
I want to commend, as the board knows, Mr. Reinhardt, because we've managed to put together somewhere in the neighborhood of $60 to $70 million of renovation projects without a single dollar raised in the general fund budget. It's all been through careful planning of debt service reissues and taking real advantage of the market right now and the low interest rates. I also just want to make a quick editorial comment about the state. I want to say that our 2 representatives, Scott Petrie and Steve Santaserio, are absolutely fantastic advocates for Council Rock School District. Steve has been tirelessly working on the PlanCon funding and has introduced legislation to reinstitute the PlanCon funding, and Scott was instrumental in getting us that access funding back. In each of those cases, we went to them with a problem and they came up with a solution, and hopefully both of them will result in us getting some of the funding that we're expected to get by law in the near future. So I want to thank both of them, and when I say state, I mean it amorphously as a large entity, not those 2 gentlemen. Again, I'll reiterate that here's where you get us, budget@crsd.org, and we're happy to answer questions, happy to have dialogues with folks. You can pick up the phone and call us too, if that's the old-fashioned way to do it. But the email, we're not on Twitter, we're not on Facebook, so you can't get us there if you want to send us up. But this email and is a good way to get questions to us, and we're happy to pick up the phone if that's what you want to talk with you about this. So that's the the budget piece for right now. Now, we'll give you, let's take about a 10-minute recess, 5-minute recess, whatever questions you have, we'll gather here, and then Bob and I will go through them, and we'll be ready to answer them by 7:30.
Thank you, Bob. Sorry. No, that's not true.
You raised twice, taxes twice as high as I do. I didn't get you anything at the Chamonix Mall. I meant I was getting on the road to the Chamonix Mall.
Just had you said you're at the mall.
Did you?
Need something?
No, I was running.
Exactly. He didn't answer that one. That's weird. People were saying you should have said. Yeah.
I'll have you know that the beginning of the budget. We know that today's is not a state 86.8. I did. I stopped by and dropped off flowers. Should have brought their paper.
Last year, we just done with college. Officially, just done with college. Finished all the courses. They leave for Los Angeles tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
You leave, he's
And she's not standing on her feet. And she's got balance. Beyond family. Then I had it. By exception, it's always you know, it's multiple choice, and it's my job.
As far as I know, Walter, this when you show up, are definitely
So it's how the nannies show up. This has always been a problem. Hey, how are you? Joey?
I don't think you're ever gonna have time for that.
Thank you for getting back to me before.
And it was very good. My daughter was still driving. It's all fine. It's all fine. Yeah, I do.
These condos can go for $150,000. Just says don't change the rate. Just change the rate. We give it back. Give it to us. Your foot down. Well, I'm doing one.
Bill Harper.
I've seen all manner of things happen. And so if you make change,
Yeah, that's less than I respond.
well, then there you go. Yes, well, just so we have the cars.
This one is going to get in there. You just have to.
So, I do a system that uses that.
Yeah, I remember.
I agree.
Or is it just,
3B buses. No, we were receipts in 2 weeks. And the GPA would be on receipts in 2 weeks. I don't have the last year's is pluses and GP pluses, but if you could use tomorrow.
Remember how GPs get off Oakland, New Jersey? Before I start,
I would argue that's
time for more questions too.
yeah, because it's the strength of the study that is let me try to see. Good. We're a C. We're a C.
But it's to see, what's deceiving is that hypothetically,
Let me just try to
Now, the average person is going to have to pick something from a variety of grades, and you're not going to be able, you'll be needing to be, when I use that example, I agree that's an example of how the disconnect is between what you see. Excuse me, it's the board members, but I just want to make sure that's on the table, that is.
Are there any other questions?
Okay, so is everybody good if we just ask the public? I just didn't want to know, and I asked that interest. Now I'm just sitting
All right, come on back. Out of curiosity, because I saw one of the emails that went out, how many of you are here to ask about Saul Feinstein and elections? Okay, so let me just say to you, and you're welcome to come up to public comment, but myself, Mr. Taylor, and any member of the board who's interested will stay after the budget forum for as long as necessary to talk to you about that process. And if we have to go up to Saul Feinstein one afternoon and just go over what we're proposing for that time, we will certainly do that too. So you're welcome to stay, and we'll wait after the budget forum and just talk with a smaller group on that if you're interested in staying for a period of time. There was a question about Saul Feinstein and, pardon me? It is a school. It's an elementary school. So those members of the Saul Feinstein community have some questions about voter access. We'll stay and address that as soon as we're done with the budget forum. Bob and I are just going to rotate. You've got a microphone, I've got a microphone. These are probably random. You can go ahead and go first.
I just put a mint in my mouth.
Oh, you want me to go first? I'll go first here. Swallow the mint. The question is, when teachers receive special professional development that makes them attractive if they go to work elsewhere, does Council Rock have any agreement that teachers will stay here for that return on investment? That's a great question, because that's a good business question. The short answer for us, public education in Council Rock is a very unique enterprise. When we get someone at 21 years old out of college, we tend to keep them for 35 years unless they choose to leave because they're going to raise a family or do something else. It is very, very seldom that a member of our teaching staff leaves for another school district to teach. Occasionally, a teacher will make a jump into the next realm of administration, and that happened in the last year where we lost 2 very good teachers to Centennial School District to take administrative positions there. But those are the very rare cases where someone will move into another position. If you're looking at a math teacher in Council Rock, if they start here after college, they are likely to stay here for 35 years. It makes this enterprise that is public education in our school district very interesting because we keep someone for their entire duration of their career, through their families, through various tragedies in their life, through many successes. It's just an interesting part of what we do with staff. So professional development and the support services we provide for them are usually almost 99% of the time an investment in the better education for our students.
If PlanCon is statutory requirement, is legal action being considered? PlanCon is a statutory requirement. There was a moratorium passed in a previous state budget where it was an ominous budget bill that was passed, and in that, they put a moratorium on it. What had occurred to the line item was that the state reduced the line item by 11% one year, and they were behind the 8 ball at that point, and now it's 11% lower than it was before, and now they're a very difficult funding situation right now. Legal action is something that I would not say is being thought of right now, but is there a lobbying effort with our legislators? Yes, and there has been some legislative action. I'm not sure it's going to come out of committee, but there has been action in regard to it.
The thing about legislation is if the legislature passes a law, they can also agree not to follow the law in most cases unless there's a constitutional issue around it. So when they pass the Plan Con requirement, they also pass the necessary legislation to say we're going to stay that funding for a period of time. And unfortunately, the way the state budget is shaping up right now, we don't see the excess revenue that will come back in the near future, but I'm hopeful Steve Santisario has some new ideas on how that might get funded.
There's a second question in regard to this. If nothing happens to the state, what would happen if we disregard some silly unfunded mandate? That would be interesting, but I will tell you there's a lot of checks and balances with the state and reporting that we need to do to ensure that we are following direction. And different mandates have different requirements and action that could occur if you do not follow it. So I don't know if you want to add to that.
There are a couple questions that are in here that I'm simply going to say we'll get back to you. So the Q&A that we do tonight, we'll script the answers and we'll put them also on the web. There are a couple things that are just going to require us to gather data. We don't have it on our fingertips. So there was a good question about fund balance over 5 years. We will get that data and post it. There's a good question about special ed costs and why there's a disparate, if you look at special ed cost per pupil, there is a disparity between Council Rock and a neighboring school district. We've got to do some study on that. We have a colleague board member who's interested in looking at that too. So I would expect that we'll do some work on that as we begin the next school year to understand that a little bit more. There was also a very good question about benchmarking, Council Rock has done, I believe, an extraordinary job of benchmarking our practices, particularly in the business realm, but also in a variety of others. I've handed this out to a couple people. Anybody else is welcome to it. It's a white paper that we built called Developing and Managing the Budget. We built it about 4 years ago. We've updated it every year. It talks about all of the extraordinary efforts we do to control our expenditures, from benchmarking energy costs, benchmarking transportation, looking at a variety of ways to control costs from cost factors of benefits, and the things that we've done over the past 10 years that have helped us to control costs, like taking over our benefit line and doing self-funding rather than using IBC as our primary benefit. So those are the things that you can read in there. It's on the web. Anybody that wants, I have some paper copies here. It's going to take some time to get through if you want to work your way through it, but right now it's up to 12 pages of information and explanation about that. So you can find it on the web, and I'm happy to supply a paper copy for you if you would like.
Pensions or substitute teachers included in the pension program. They are in the pension program. They do not accumulate a lot of time if they're just substituting day-to-day subs. They would have to work 180 days to get a full year, and their earnings are low, but yes, they are part of the pension program. Are coaching salaries included in the pension cost? Coaching salaries are part of the pension cost unless the coach waives out of the pension program, and they are able to do that, and some do that. Are coaching activities considered staff or a contracted expense? They are considered staff, yes.
They're part of that. Was it 800 people that Ms. Trioli showed you that are part of our extra duty responsibility? They're coaches, they're choir directors in the evening, they're accompanists for pianos, they're club sponsors, they're all of the things that make our co-curricular program go.
They're not all members of staff.
Pardon me?
You're paying pension costs for all those people who are in just for a few hours?
And so are they. And we don't have it. I want to make sure that I'm getting your, we don't have a choice. They are members of our staff for purposes of, and the board approves them as what are called EDRPP positions.
They're not all teachers.
No, many of them are not now. We used to, for a long time in Council Rock, be very proud of the fact that most of our coaches were also teachers, and that's still very true. But more and more you're seeing a migration to certain coaches that are working from the outside, who live in our community, will come in and coach like a lacrosse program or swimming. There's a question here, is there a fund for replacement of artificial turf after its useful life? How much will taxpayers be affected and when? How much has been raised by Turf the Rock? So right now, the artificial turf is in its 4th or 5th year of life cycle. The life cycle for the turf that we purchased is somewhere between 9 and 11 years. One of the ways we expected to replace that turf at very little or no cost to the community is around the leasing that we do with Council Rock United and other athletic groups that use the turf in the evening. So we went from 11 to 12 uses on the Walt Snyder Stadium to over 300. And in the evenings, when Council Rock United or Upper Makefield or some of the lacrosse programs are using it, they're paying us a fee. The first part of that fee was used to offset some of the debt that we incurred to put that turf in. When that is over, which is about a 5-year payback time, the remaining period of that time from year 6 to the replacement, we'll take that, those fees that are used for that turf, bank them, and use them at some point in time to help offset the cost of the replacement. The initial cost of that stadium, which I think was somewhere in the neighborhood of $700,000 to $800,000, the replacement turf is not anywhere near as expensive. It's just taking off the top layer of that turf and relaying that. All of the really difficult infrastructure, which was digging the turf up, putting down the base, which is rock, and drainage, that all remains, and it's just a matter of replacing what is the turf itself, the front carpet of the turf. So it's in great shape right now. We're expecting it to last at least that 11-year, and we should, because of the high incidence of rentals we have for that stadium, should be able to maintain that revenue stream enough so that when it comes time to replace that top layer of turf, we should have enough money from that use to pay for that.
How are choices made as to the quality and cost of equipment bought for certain classes, i.e. kilns, instruments, iPads? Is everything state of the art? Very good question. Of course, we have the users, teachers that are actually going to use it. They develop the specifications for the type of equipment we purchase. There are cost controls involved in that because, generally speaking, the teachers will use allocations from building allocations that would have to be spent on that rather than something else. So there are cost controls where a music teacher is going to be competing for some money out of the school budget with the gym teacher and so forth and so forth. But I will tell you that we have to get the specifications from the person using the equipment. It would be unrealistic for the business manager to say, no, that's what you're getting. I need to understand what is needed in the classroom. So I do rely, or we do rely on the teacher that's using the equipment.
I have a question that says there were 9 options for saving $1.3 million in the budget. If you spread that among all the categories, it would be about $150,000 each. And I don't disagree. You could take $200,000 out of Matt's computer budget, save 400 computers. You could do it across. The dilemma that I have right now, and I'm going to explain, it may not make sense, but hopefully it will, is we zeroed out this budget a couple years ago at $14 million, and we really made significant hard cuts. That basis still remains where it is. That basis from the 2010-11 budget is about still the same. We've actually continued to try to keep staffing at the same. We've worked really hard with our associations to control the cost of collective bargaining and labor costs. That increase this year for the Council Rock Education Association is 0.5% at mid-year. So it's a real increase of only 0.25% at the top of the salary. So we've had collaboration and cooperation with all of our folks. The plan for this budget is to continue to control those expenditures. But Council Rock has an extraordinary expense. We've dealt with it for 3 years, 4 years. We have 3 more years of it to go, and that is the state funding for the Pennsylvania State Retirement System, what we call PSERS. In each of these last 2 years and in each of the next 3 years, we've seen that expenditure line go up by $5 million and the real cost to Council Rock go up by $2.5 million, because the state will give us half of that subsidy, and hopefully they'll continue to do that. So it's a $2.5 million budget deficit when we start the school year every year for that amount of money. We can make some of that up through careful expenditure controls and cuts, but I believe strongly, and that's been my recommendation to the board, that we also need to make some of that up in continuing revenue. Because at some point in time, if we don't, that $30 million threshold that is looming in 2017 is going to come crashing down on a school district that tried to control this just through expenditure controls and is then lacking the revenue and the existing fund balance that's left over to backfill that issue. Judiciously and carefully, if we backfill a little bit of revenue and make those expenditure cuts, by the time we get to that $30 million threshold, we can give the school district then the breadth it needs to go forward and then make decisions about holding expenditure lines in place and not having that piece in front of you and potentially looking at smaller budget increases or revenue increases. But yes, we could cut some more teachers, we could cut some more computers. That's not the recommendation, but the folks behind me, the board, asked for some of those, at least a look at 1.3, look what 1.3 looks like, and we'll still have some polishing to do for this budget over the next month.
If middle school and high school started at the same time, could save transportation costs? Has this ever been considered? Mr. Pinero, I will tell you, I can't tell you he looked at this scenario, but he shows me scenarios every year in regard to the level of service to the cost, and we're always working on that. I will tell you that our transportation costs have gone down. This year is one of the areas that the transportation contract went down $400,000, and that was over time where routes have been consolidated and adjusted. So has he done this one exactly? I would have to talk to him and say, okay, what would happen if we did this? And he'd tell me what he could do and couldn't do. But I believe it's always critically reviewed, and they really work hard in the transportation part.
We did benchmark our transportation services about 4 years ago before we renewed the first student. And one of the things we looked at is alternatives, how to build and change the bell times in effect of our schools. And we found in our benchmarking that the way we do it right now continues to be the most efficient way to do it. There are other couple options. It requires some changes for you and for us. Right now we've done pretty well with what we have. We run about 156 buses, over $2 million or 2 million miles every year with yellow buses that go in and out of the school district. And we have an on-time rating that's pretty good. In fact, SEPTA would be jealous of our on-time rating for kids and bus stops. This is, I'm going to read this, but I don't think it's a question, it's a comment. So I'm not sure I'll respond entirely other than to say I probably disagree with the comment. But it says, having graduated from high school in the 80s, we didn't have any computers in schools, but nevertheless received great education and became computer literate. I believe cutting off the technology budget substantially will not impact the ability of children to succeed and gain knowledge. Please don't waste money on computers and iPads. All I have to say simply is I'm not sure I agree. Okay? I apologize for having my back to you.
See the other side of you.
It is my best side, thank you. I've never seen that. I wonder if the board has any questions for us that we didn't have a chance to answer.
I think the consensus on the board, Mr. Klein, was not that someone might not have a question, please feel free to ask, but we did want to say that we viewed this as an opportunity for the public. We discussed it last week, and we will discuss it again. The budget at this time is in the hands of the board, and all decisions going forward from now will come from the board.
I just wanted to make one addition. You know, a lot of people aren't familiar with the way it really isn't. You know, as a group, we deal with these things year in and year out. And sometimes what we know, we think the community knows. And the example being the discussion about the buses. So everybody's on the same playing field. we reuse the same buses initially for high school. They drop the kids off, they go out for middle school, they collect the kids, drop them off in elementary school. It's the same bus. A couple years ago, we had 175 bus routes. Now we're down to 156. The other thing that always comes up, and we always look at it, and in the fall when we approve bus routes, it's always a topic. The buses at the high school level always appear at this time of year. When you look in the buses as they go by at high school, they look sort of empty. But the requirement is by state law, because of the way we have to transport, because of lack of walkability in our schools, we have to provide a seat for every student on the bus. So that's the dilemma, that those buses are actually scheduled to be full on each run. So combining the elementary and middle school and high school kids on the same bus means we put more buses on the road. We sometimes forget and that people aren't as familiar as we are. So that's a little insight. The question may still be valid. Jack does a great job, but that's the insight onto buses.
There was one last question, I apologize, and it had to do with children and diabetes and some of the servings in our lunchroom. It's hard for me to answer this because the question is, why do we sell soft pretzels and sugar foods for lunch? Our lunches are pretty healthy these days. We are in the process of rebidding our food service contracts. We have 3 vendors that are now making presentations for us. Some of the snacks are there as an augmentation to the lunches. Kids can pick those things up, but they are not the approved school lunch. In other a la carte issues, like at the high school and at the middle school, the kids may have an opportunity to buy some of those snacks. So I'm not sure I can answer this fully, but if the person who asked the question either wants to stay around tonight or shoot me an email, even at that budget at CRSD, I'll try to get a more detailed answer to that person about some of the concerns they have. The rest of this is yours. It's public comment time. Bob and I will stay here. If there's a question we can answer when you raise it in public comment, we'll try. If not, again, we'll continue to script down some of the things we're hearing, and we'll add it to the questions and answers that we'll post on the web. So public comment is now yours. Please come to the microphone, state your name and where you're from, and then we'll go from there.
My name is Barbara Breeden. I live in Washington Crossing, Upper Makefield. And my question is about this year's expenditures, the construction expenditures for Sol Feinstein School. What is the nature of the work being done? From our understanding, it isn't going to be started until sometime next week, and it will then impact our voting place in Upper Makefield Township. It's going to impact it in such a way that those who are physically unable to go up steps, which are fairly steep, about 3 to 5, are going to have to go roundabout another side of the building and come in that way if they're in a wheelchair, if they're in a walker. Once they're in the school, they will have a fairly lengthy walk to get to the voting place. We're really asking if you can just postpone this for a week beyond so that work starts the day after the election. Our understanding is that the area is going to be fenced off next week, I believe Wednesday. So we're looking for a 1-week delay. We know you did not mean to damage the senior citizens or the handicapped in any way in our community. We recognize that. But sometimes there are unforeseen consequences, and it's those very people that we should be protecting the most who are going to be hurt by this. So for this reason, we're asking if you would please postpone the construction activity.
Thank you. And again, we'll stay afterwards and talk through some of the concerns that you have.
Mike Tierney, Upper Makefield. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The reason I'm before you here tonight is I'm our township's liaisons to the school board, and I came across an article in the Herald recently, and it was pretty disturbing, and I would just like to read some quick quotes from it and go from there. The title of it was New Hope Solebury ranks 3rd in the state. According to its website, U.S. News and World Report partnered with the Washington-based behavior and social science research organization to produce the rankings, which were compiled using a 3-step process. The first 2 steps ensured that schools served all the students well, using performance state proficiency tests as the benchmarks, and those schools that made it past the first 2 steps, a 3rd step, to the degree of which the schools prepared the students for college-level work. Other notable rankings from the area include Central Bucks East High School, number 28 in the state, and number 1,092 in the nation. Penn Ridge High School, number 52 in the state, number 1,938 in the nation. Souderton Area High School in Montgomery County, ranked 18th in the state, 950th in the nation. Goes on to say, good news travels fast. When word circulated that New Hope Solebury School landed at number 3 on the U.S. News and World Report in 2014 ranking of best high schools in Pennsylvania. Not only did New Hope Solebury rank 3rd out of 690 Pennsylvania high schools, but it also ranked 337 out of 19,400 high schools in the nation total. In the mid to late 90s, Council Rock was number 1 and number 2 respectively in the state. In 2004, Council Rock was one of the only high schools in Bucks County named to be in the 50 best schools list. Council Rock High School North ranked top in Bucks County in 2005, 2006, and 2008. In 2007, Newsweek magazine ranked Council Rock High School North as one of America's top schools. Today, in 2014, we're not even ranked. When I read this, I was embarrassed, and I think that we have an educational emergency here. So what I'm asking the board here is we need to come up with a way to where we need to get back to what Council Rock has been known for. We need to provide an exceptional education for the students, not marble buildings. So 2 requests from the board tonight. 1, I would request that you freeze this budget, no tax increases until further examination can be done. And my second request, and the reason for the first one is this country's in tough economic times right now. We can't afford this. We've been throwing money at this situation for over a decade, and we've systematically been declining in state rankings. My second request is, and this is only because I'm my township's liaison to this board, I would request permission from this board to put together a group of residents that are experts in the field of education and in finance, that they would look at the problems, come up with a solution, and present them to this board for your consideration. This is not something that is a Newtown issue, Upper Makefield issue. We all live here. It's basically it's all of our problem. There's no shame in asking for help. You know, we all need help from time to time in various different things. And I say that the only shame is when you recognize that there's a problem, you refuse the free help, and you continue down the same path, basically in this case of self-destruction. So, Mr. Klein, I would respectfully ask that permission from you to be able to form this group. Again, it's just an advisory type of a organization that would present recommendations as they see fit. The board obviously makes the final call, but just to where we can get some outside perspective on not only budgetary items, but how we can get back to being number 1, number 2 in the state. Because we live right next to Solebury, and for them to be number 3 and climbed up from 13th, and we dropped from 1, 2, and subsequently a little bit lower there to now not even being ranked. is an embarrassment. It's an absolute embarrassment, and it's fixable. We just need to find the way to, you know, come out with this with this solution. So, Mr. Klein, would I have your permission to?
No. Respectfully, what I would say is that our deliberations on any of the work that we're doing is open to the public. We have finance committees, we have facility committees, we have a lot of different work that gets done in this school district where anyone who wants to is invited to come in and give their thoughts. Mrs. Carroll, Mr. McGill, all of these folks come on a regular basis, understand the operation of the school district, and provide input. That's the forum for which people can come in and give us plenty of input. And it's, I would speak only for myself, but I know the board would say the same thing. That information and that opportunity for you to provide feedback in those forums is where the community is invited to give us information. If you come at this late time and start to say that, quote unquote, we're an embarrassment, you haven't watched the last...
I was embarrassed.
Okay, well,
That's what I said.
I took it personally, I'm sorry. And I feel that way about it.
And that's what it seems like you're going with.
But I really want you to go on and take a look on the walls in the lobby, because we've been ranked in U.S. News and World Report and in Newsweek every year for the last couple, every year
What's
for the
your
past
ranking
10.
this year?
It's not there, but the
Why is
first...
it there this year?
Because the first round of the U.S. News and World Report ranking has to do with socioeconomic disadvantaged kids and the way that it's put together. There are plenty of other good schools in our area. Lower Moreland is always in the top tier. They weren't ranked this year. Central Bucks South and Central Bucks West were also not ranked.
What was your ranking last year?
14 for North.
So what happened between last year and this year?
We don't know, because the metric for U.S. News and World Report isn't clear. But all I know is that in any given year, you'll go up and down in those rankings. It's not how you measure schools, not some magazine that's on a shelf. That's not the only metric that you use to measure schools.
It's a metric in which colleges look at. They don't care if you have a beautiful school. They care what your state ranking is. And so this is what
If you
colleges
could provide that information to me, Mr. Tierney, but we've talked to our colleges all the time.
That's notional, Mr. Klein. So you're refusing free expert advice.
No, I'm saying come join us at our facilities and finance
That's what I'm
committee.
trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do. But I would like to form a group, and I didn't want to do it without having, to go behind the board's back here. I'd like to have, transparency here to where you understood.
We would like transparency too, Mr. Tierney. We'd like to invite you to come to our committee meetings, because if you form a group...
This is what I'm getting at.
Right.
And if we had the understanding and the board understood what we were trying to do, and we came together collectively in all these different fields...
But we would like to be a part of that too, as members of the board. So could you come to our finance meeting? Could you come to our academic standards meeting?
Ma'am, 1 second. You will be a part of it. If we got together, came up with the recommendations, rather than hearing from one citizen, then another citizen...
We don't want one. We want you to come to the meeting that we have scheduled so we can all have the conversation.
Just allow me to finish. If we got together, the group got together, identified problems that they saw were areas that it needed fix, and came up with one type of a concise... one concise plan, and then presented that to you, you would be hearing from a large group of...
That's what we'd like to do. And we'd like them to come on Thursday nights at 6:30 and allow us to be part of that conversation.
You would be part of the conversation. That's what I said, to present...
At the end. We would like to be part of the ongoing conversation.
You would be part of the ongoing conversation, because obviously you make the final recommendation. These are just for your considerations.
Right, and we'd like to do that.
Sometimes you have to put your pride behind.
It's nothing to do with pride. I simply want you to come on the date we have scheduled to invite you to come, and to bring as many people as you can, and we will have the discussion.
It doesn't work that way, ma'am. If you have a group together working in all different areas, one in finance, one in trying to improving our testing scores.
Well, if you start with that, then we will consider bringing them together.
That's what I'm saying. And then when you have that all together, concise in one presentation, it saves time, money, it saves all the above, rather than saying...
Are you aware, I'm sorry to interrupt, are you aware that there's a committee, there's already a group that was assembled and authorized by the board to do this within the community? Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Well, that's the first starting point. I think that's the disconnect. Excuse me. We authorized the group. We put out a public notice. We had 40 some odd people who responded to it. It came down to who was going to be on it, and rather than enter into politics of who we pick, I believe we allowed everyone who came forward.
Right.
And they're on that group. We said to that group, largely, we sat here and said, allow that group to be self-directed, and the group has been self-directed. It's been broken into 3 streams. So while I appreciate the notion that you come forward with, those people, I would have hoped, would have been part of this well-advertised, frequent meetings that have been going on for the past 4 months, year,
Well,
what is it?
September.
Since September.
A lot of people are afraid to come up to the podium and...
That's not a podium to you.
That's what I'm saying. I'm using podium as a...
Well, but this was a public meeting, they could sit, so
People-
I would
a lot
prefer
of
to meet
people-
with people, I would prefer to see people who didn't work in the background. I know that you had
It's
a
not
number of...
working in the background, sir. Sir, it's not working in the background. It's working behind the scenes and then presenting it to you. You guys make the final say. You
That's what
guys
they're
make-
doing.
Right,
That's
you
what this
understand
committee
that.
is doing.
But now we have a $57 million school proposal. By the time you draft the plan, by the time you draw it up, by the time you break ground, by the time you have the building built, the second grade enrollment right now is down. By the time that building is in function, the classrooms are going to be empty. If these are the same people that gave you that recommendation, then you need new people to give you advice. That's nuts.
It's not.
It's
I wouldn't
not the
say it's
same
not.
people.
No, this is a wide-ranging group. There are people in professional aspects, there are administrators who run multi-billion-dollar organizations. There are people there who are running multi-billion-dollar facilities. There are people who are retired who come with a great deal of expertise, whether it's in construction, finance. There are people who are previous educators. There are nurses. There are engineers. We put it out to the public. Please watch the historic meetings of the meeting, the minutes of the meeting, and see who the requests were made to, and you'll have a better understanding.
Then where is this proposal coming from? So their
It's coming
recommendation...
from them.
Committee of the public.
So the recommendation for the...
They haven't presented
They're
yet.
coming forward with 3
I'm
recommendations.
trying to hear one of the two of you, but, so the recommendation to do the $57 million building came from them? You just said no, right?
Nobody's done the $57 billing.
There's not a recommend. The issue
Mr.
that-
Klein, can we postpone this conversation till the end? There are people lined up to speak. So can we continue this
Ma'am,
conversation?
I'm sorry you don't like what you're hearing, but I
It's
mean... I
nothing
thought
to
this
do with
was
not
public
liking it,
comment.
Mr. Tierney. I've invited you to our meetings. I've asked you several times to come, and it's a continued conversation for one person. This was meant to be a public meeting to give everyone. We will
just-
stay here as long as you want. I'm just asking you to have a break in this conversation to give other people a chance, because some people are starting to
Just to
leave.
finish my thought rather than have it broken up.
As soon as you're done your thought, could we move on?
Absolutely, of course, that's what
Okay.
public comment, I think, normally entails. So if you have this group that was already there, and you weren't opposed to that, what is wrong with having another perspective looking in on it? People that did not respond to your ad for whatever reasons may be.
As a member of the public, you can assemble whatever group you'd like, do whatever you'd like,
Okay.
make whatever presentation, come to the board and send the board whatever documentation you want.
Okay.
You know, there's an
The
aspect of
reason
free
I think-
speech.
right,
So
right.
I don't know why, you know, that
The reason I
that the
came here
board
is
needs-
I didn't want to do it without the board's approval. I was hoping Mr. Klein would be, more open to something like that, but obviously, like to keep things more in-house, but, so that's okay then for
I
us to
receive
put
proposals,
together
I
an
receive
advisory
proposals from the
board.
community on different things all the time.
Right, but you have recommendations, just like you have recommendations here that you thought were ridiculous to get rid of computers, things like that. Recommendations come in all the time. I'm talking about a group of experts in education and finance that may help solve the budgetary issues, that may help bring up Council Rock's rating back to where we were in the late 90s when we didn't have the budget that we have today. Throwing money at these problems does not fix it. It doesn't fix it. And there's a reason we're not rated. There is an absolute reason. There is a reason that we've gone from number 1 and number 2 in the state to a lower ranking to not even being rated. And that should be a big tick in everybody's minds here, because this is what colleges look at. This is what they look at. Council Rock is riding on their reputation right now, but that'll only happen for so long. If we keep going down this path, and I can't tell you what's wrong, what's happening. I'm not an expert in education, nor am I an expert in finance. I just wanted to spearhead a group, being that I'm your liaisons from one of the townships that are part of this
Who
district.
didn't know we had a capital planning committee.
I've been here 3 months, sir. I've been here 3 months.
You've lived in the town 3 months and you're a supervisor already?
You know, you're missing the point. I've been at the township for 3 months. I've been at the township for 3 months. So,
Okay.
so as far as me knowing exactly what you've put out there, no, you're right. I did not know what you had put out there.
Okay.
But the recommendations are either not being listened to, or you're not getting good recommendations. So therefore, I would like to have another group, which costs you nothing. And again, ma'am, you get to make the final say. The rest of the board here, you get to. It's all on a recommendation that you can shoot down, or maybe you can take a piece of it, or take all of it. And I mean, we all live here. We all. It's something that we're all a part of. And to dismiss free advice, I don't understand where that logic comes from. I mean, it's just. So, Mr. Klein, then you are okay with a one presentation that was a collective thought process?
Mr. Klein does speak for the board. The board.
I'm asking, well, you are the superintendent, so.
Correct.
So that's why I'm asking your opinion on this.
What opinion do you want?
The one question I just asked. If it's all right with you, if you had one voice speak that echoed a group that was put together that had that are residents of this district.
Mr. Taylor, you don't need permission for that.
I just want to keep you abreast to it, ma'am.
You know, but you don't need permission in order to do that. As the liaison for Upper Makefield, which you've said repeatedly that you are, and I appreciate that January was your start date. This is the first that we've seen or heard from you.
This is the first problem that really came.
No, you're talking about a breadth of problems, and we welcome you to come to our committee meetings to get to know us, to better understand our process, what we're doing.
Came out. When would you like me to come? Before it was printed? I always thought that Council Rock was high ranked.
Can I just interject something about the rankings? Now, I didn't look into it specifically, but what I do know about the U.S. News ranking is something like 60 or more % of schools are automatically eliminated for consideration when certain criteria is not met. So it's a 3-step process, but part of the second step is where they calculate certain percentages of underrepresented minorities and underrepresented groups as a percentage of your whole. So I haven't looked into it and I don't know. So it is possible that Council Rock simply did not meet certain criteria in step 2, so they never even made it. You can't necessarily draw the conclusion that we drumped.
You made it in 2013, so
but our population changes.
That drastically changed in 1 year?
I don't know. It could happen. I'm just saying that you can't necessarily draw the conclusion that not being, excuse me, I'll just finish my thought, that you can't necessarily draw the conclusion that not being in the ranking means that it was a severe drop in the rankings.
Oh, you're in the ranking. You're in the 70s. We're in the 70s. Okay? If they cut it off at 59, anything above that, they're not interested in. But to your point right here, the first 2 steps ensured that the schools served all of the students well, using performance on state proficiency tests and other benchmarks. These schools that made it past those first 2 steps then were assessed on the degree to where they prepared students for college.
But there's other benchmarks. And out of thousands...
Preparing students for college, does that mean you're black, you're white, you're Hispanic?
No, that's not the benchmark they use.
But the point is that if you look at it, the overwhelming majority of schools in the country are not even moved along in the process because of certain benchmarking issues that exclude them. Only, I believe, and this is from memory, about 1/3 of schools in the country even make it into the process to get further along. I will look more closely into this to understand it, but I just wanted to give some background that you can't always draw just a single conclusion. There's a lot of things that gets formulated, and yes, changes do happen dramatically from 1 year to the next.
Mr. Tierney, I want you to understand something too. There are many groups in this community who have come to the board around an idea similar to yours, maybe a little different. 23, 24 years ago, I myself gathered together along with other ladies in the community who had small children in the schools to form an organization. That organization today is called Citizens for Education. It's an education advocacy group that works to help support quality education in Council Rock. It's nonpartisan, and it works to bring parents' ideas to the board. This organization was formed after playgroup while we were having lunch in a kitchen. We sat at the kitchen table. We thought about what we were concerned about. At that time, I wanted to see more counselors in the elementary schools. We formulated opinions, we looked up research, and we stood where you're standing and presented what we wanted to the board. We came regularly. 23 years later, we still exist. We still work for the good of quality education in Council Rock. We gleaned information from readings and from experts and from people in other districts and from professionals throughout the field. We did that, and we're perfectly happy to continue doing that. Now, you can do that. You can gather all your experts at your kitchen table. You can work on whatever information you wish to work on. Most of our information is completely public. You can go to our website, you find out everything you need to know. And what you don't need to know, you can ask one of us. And one of us will try and get you, or you can ask the superintendent for what information you need to continue in your work. And then you are welcome to come to the academic standards meeting, the facilities meeting, the finance meeting, or that podium, and believe me, I think that podium is the most powerful podium you'll ever have, and tell us what you want us to do.
This podium is the most powerful podium I've ever had.
Well, I mean, maybe you'll be president, I don't know. But it's a pretty powerful podium in Council Rock. So what you say from there...
You're pretty condescending the way you address people. I mean, that's pretty amazing. But,
I don't think that was at all condescending. I am saying to you, you can do exactly what you want. I also want you to know that when we have a regular board meeting, today you got it back and forth with us. That won't happen again. That's not the way we do this here at a regular board meeting. So you'll have that for 3 minutes to talk and tell us what you want to tell us. There's lots of groups out there doing what you're doing. We look forward to seeing you.
to them?
Of course we do.
But you don't talk back to them?
Correct.
So you just...
Just so
During public comment.
If you had
Mrs.
a
Sexton is referring to during public comment. We do not. We talk to people all of the time.
No, that's obviously what I understood what you mean. So during public comment, you just listen and you don't respond back to it.
Yes.
So if you had a question, and it wasn't clear in your mind, and you were planning on implementing it, you wouldn't ask the question to get the clarification.
We would answer you later.
You would answer later, but not on TV.
Right.
Well, we have committee meetings for those discussions. We think when you come to the podium, you've gotten your information and you're presenting an idea.
I understand. What I was saying is if Ms. Saxon over there was unclear, because she really wants to implement what she's hearing, but she's unclear on a certain part that she's hearing, she wouldn't get clarification in the scope of trying to implement. That's basically...
Not at that second, unlikely. I'm sorry. That's why I asked for you to come to the committee meetings, because I think there's a better dialogue. I really was not trying to be sarcastic. I was saying, if you have good ideas, we'd like to come so we can converse. Those are open conversations. So that's what I was trying to get to.
Would this board be willing to freeze this budget until a reasonable recommendation came forward? I mean, we cannot afford this. We cannot afford these continued tax.
So on June 5th, we will vote on that, and at formal board meetings, we'll discuss it. We're here to listen to the public tonight.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Well, it doesn't, but you're just going to dismiss me all night, so it's...
You know, can I just make a quick comment? I don't want to belabor it. Mr. Tierney, you know, I had a lot of the, I've been an advocate for a financial planning committee for this district, and it was discussed during my election, and it's, I believe it's going to be one of the goals that we continue to discuss for the board. I have to tell you that I've been very, very impressed with this capital planning group that's come forward. I've attended a lot of the meetings, as other board members have, of the financial planning group, and I have a lot of confidence in what they're going to deliver, and I'm looking forward to their recommendations. So I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate your thought process, but it really does feel like we're already through the process. So before we start another group, I'd really like to see what this group comes forward with. They've worked through snowstorms, they've worked through weekends. We have members of this group here now, and again, they're very, very highly qualified.
So, sir, in 1 week, if I provide you their names and resumes, would that be acceptable to you?
Again, I'd like to see what this group that we put together publicly, we put the notice out there. It was not a hand-picked group. It's very important. Everyone was invited to come on board, and I'd like to see what they come up with first. That's
Before-
me. That's my
right, before
opinion.
you hear from him. Okay. I'm sorry, I can't read your name.
Mark Bialik.
Mark Byler. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Not so much a question on the budget, but just a kind of an FYI. I've been a resident of the Council Rock School District a long time. Can't do the math up here. But I've never been one to ask permission from a school board authority, either staff or board members, because I'm a citizen of Council Rock. I'm a taxpayer of Council Rock. My children went to Council Rock. And whether it's myself and my own opinion, factual or otherwise, or myself and any of the number of groups that I'm a participant in, coming together with to develop opinions, I do it. And when I have something to say, I say it to the board, or I say it to individual board members. You know, I would suggest that anybody who wants to do this kind of thing should have conversations with their board member beyond meetings. Okay, this is not a one-shot deal where, you know, you walk up here and, you know, it's either yes or no. And I think that, you know, that's the kind of thing that, you know, the school board has tried to encourage. I am a member of the capital planning committee, and we have worked our tails off in a lot of ways for this thing. Okay, so I understand it's just that starting this thing. I think you have a learning curve, you know, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Seymour Birchman, Holland. I want to second what Steve said. I wasn't one of the 46, but I decided that I would attend the Finance Committee meetings. I've been in email discussions with Bill Foster. I find the board and its committees to be very open to discussion, open to ideas, open to analysis, and I don't think it's necessary to set up a separate body that's working in parallel, because I find the district and the board to be as welcoming to ideas as any organization that I've had the experience of working with. And so just wanted to say that. I wanted to get a clearer view, and I invited myself to the meetings. I know there are open meetings, and I invited myself, and I've taken the time and I've attended most of them for the last 2 or 3 months. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Dave Rosser. I'm from Upper Makefield Township, the 2nd District, and I want to reiterate the things that Barbara Breeden had mentioned earlier about the construction that's going on potentially at our school on voting day. Well, as we all know, seniors vote a lot, and from my experiences over the years, I've seen a lot of people that come to vote are using walkers, using wheelchairs, and using canes. So I just implore the board to please consider postponing that until after the election is over. We've had a lot of close elections in our district. 2 years ago, in District 3, we had a person for committee, won by 1 vote. And in District 2, my district, we had an absolute dead heat tie. So every vote really, really is important. So thanks for your consideration.
Good evening, John Roche, Wrightstown Township. I've been around for a while, and I remember the Hayes Large study, which taxpayers, I believe, if I recall off the top of my head, paid about $50,000 for. It was part of a study done in the mid-2000s to find out what we needed to do to fix our schools, to bring them up to standards, and to make sure that they were effectively used for the number of students we had. At that time, Hayes Large and whatever the study was that was done at the same time, which was predicting demographic trends, showed that over the coming 10 years, Council Rock's enrollment would drop significantly. particularly at the elementary schools. At that time, I spoke about that and said, the information is already here. You need to start talking about closing a school. That study seemed to be used for other reasons. No discussions were ever made public about decisions whether or not an elementary school was needed. Then this past year, I believe, there was a new study commissioned, again to look at how many schools we need. I've spoken at the last public meeting. I will continue to speak at any meeting I can make. What I want to know is when the decision is finally going to be made that this district can save money by closing some of its schools. Because if we're going to be spending money on fixing middle schools or building entire new ones, I'm concerned that we seem to make those decisions an awful lot faster than closing a school that's no longer needed. So I would like this board to set a date by which whatever studies have been commissioned in the past will be required to be voted on, to make a determination by the next fiscal year whether this district really needs 10 elementary schools, because I don't think it needs 9 elementary schools. I think the correct number is 8. And that would save the district an awful lot of money. Thank you.
Mr. O'Shea, just so you know, that's what the planning committee that has been just discussed, that's what their charge is, to give the board that kind of feedback. And the deadline, I think, or at least what we try to set up, is a timeline of June for them to make their recommendations to the board, and then the board to deliberate this summer. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Nancy Carroll, Newtown Borough, a regular attendee of the Finance and Facilities meetings. I get into the minutia of the school district and the budget, and my biggest concern right now, besides taking the trailers offline, which you hear all the time, is technology. I went to school in the 60s, and I'll match my education in the 60s against anybody else's in the 60s. These kids today need technology. They can't afford for us not to provide them the technology they need to go on with their lives, no matter what it is. And it's a very important part of education, and I think $1.3 million is a pittance for technology. It's like 1,000 devices. That would take us like 10 or 12 years to rotate them all out. So I know we're in a tight spot. I know we need schools, and we could probably suffer out this year, but I think in the long term, we ought to look out 5 years where we're going with technology and how we're going to get there. Thank you.
Gil Slutsky, Holland. Actually, I was the one who wrote that comment about the technology, and you respectfully disagreed with me, but you didn't explain your point. And I just wanted to elaborate on that point a little bit more. I myself, as a software engineer and computer specialist, and what I see is that the more technology, computers we do introduce into the teaching process, it seems like, and I see it from all my sons, that one is graduated, another one is in school yet, and another one is coming in. The more technology we do introduce, the lazier they become in grasping the concepts, in thinking creatively. They do know how to push buttons, they do know how to open applications, they know how to use Excel, Word, internet, but that is not what I believe the school should deliver to them. This is something they can pick up on their own somewhere at home, on leisure time, as a extracurricular activity at school, but wasting millions of dollars every time the technology advances so quickly, updating computers, especially going after, let's say, Apple, which is more expensive than any other tablet that you would pick up, creates kind of a run to maybe put your advertisement that we are really technology advanced school district, that we're really helping kids. But did anyone did a study? Is it really helping kids? Do we really get anything out of it for the amount of money that we put into this? Maybe it would be better to hire math or science teachers and have extracurricular activities for them in math and science, and spend this money to encourage the creative thinking, instead of just throwing computers into the every table, or giving iPad to every student to run around with taxpayers' money, even though they have their own iPads, probably stacks of them, 2, 3, 4, and coming up, whatever. So if you really believe that iPads is the way to go, why don't they bring their own iPads that they have stacks of them under the bed to school? Or why not to go the old way, learn by the book, and make them think creatively instead of poking the fingers into the iPads. That was just my thought, and I was really willing to ask you if you can maybe do some study how much it's helping or not, and if not, why not to cut this 1.3 million, or just put it to something more efficient that kids really would benefit from. That's my take on the computers.
So just 2 quick points. First, we are studying what would be called bring your own device policy. Mr. Frederickson has been on the forefront of that, and we're looking at...
Yeah, I saw the emails about it.
So I think that has real potential. It can't offset the total cost of technology, because there still are kids in our district that don't have that technology at home. I think we assume that most kids do, but there still are many that don't. The other thing that's interesting is the migration of a lot of our testing, from the Keystone test to the PSSAs to some of the, that's all being done now online. The state is mandating pretty much now that a lot of that testing, so you have to have at least some technology to fulfill the mandatory testing requirements. But I'll stand by our kids for the most part, that they continue to do the book and study and creative things. And well, the one thing we've not done a lot of is the cyber learning, where the kids are in front of a computer on the entire day. I would agree with you that that's not the place. In the end, what makes a big difference in education is still that relationship between the teacher and the kid. And I don't see that changing in the near future.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating completely going out of computer usage. What I'm saying is to limit it to a certain degree and have it used wisely, not overwhelmingly.
And we haven't done the one-to-one. Really what we're doing in Mr. Frederickson's budget is just trying to sustain the level of computers that we have right now. And as you obviously know, in a 4 or 5 year life cycle, a Dell or an HP or something, the processors are done. They don't take the most...
right, new software you can't install and stuff like that. That's true.
Exactly.
But for example, iPads could be replaced by much cheaper alternatives running Google's.
Much of the iPad use that we have deals with Dr. Lambert and his realm in special services. And Apple is uniquely poised to do some of the work with students with special needs that some of those other tablets aren't. And Apple, particularly their universal access parts of their software, continue to be cutting edge in terms of what happens. So much of what we do in the iPads have to do with kids with significant autism, significant learning needs, where the iPads actually augment instruction. And there's where they really do pay off. They make a real difference for a child.
That is a small portion.
But we saw from Dr. Lambert, almost 30% of our kids in some ways touch that upstream of our schools. So I thank you. I think that we're probably closer than we are apart. Anybody else? Again, I'll reiterate that to email or questions to us, our budget at councilrockschooldistrict.org. We will put our questions as best we can script them onto the web tomorrow along with this PowerPoint presentation so people can see it. And any questions that you have further, you can send to Bob and I. We'll do our best to answer them in a timely manner. Anything else from the board? No? All right. Thank you very much for coming.
I'm not raising taxes, 29.17 bills.
Mr. Klein? Mr. Klein, are you going to talk to the Saul Feinstein people?
Yeah. Are you here?